Hello, I'm Steve Kopetsky, a preventive cardiologist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I'd like to speak to you for the next few minutes in our lifestyle series on how to change to healthy lifestyle habits. Now, this isn't a talk about what habit is healthy. This is a talk about how to get your patients and you to change to healthy habits. Now, how much of what we do every day is habitual, or how much of it is a habit? And that's been looked at. There's automatic behavior we all know we have. Well, about 43% at least is a habit that we do over and over again. Probably more than that, certainly more than half of what we eat is a habit. So think of the habits you do when you drive to work, when you go home, sit in a certain chair, watch a certain show, or read a manuscript or paper. It's something we do over and over and over again. Now, it's important to define what a habit is, and it's been looked at many ways, but I think the best definition is that it is an action we take that's performed in a certain context to gain a reward. And those three things are all important. Now, what's an example of that? I get up about 5 in the morning, I go in the kitchen, I get up quietly, do not have to wake my wife, and when I walk in the kitchen early morning, I'm making coffee. I get this great aroma, this taste, this warmth, very important up here in Minnesota to get that. And sometimes I'll sit and drink it and look around and think, God, who made this coffee? I don't even remember making it. Did Linda wake up? Did she make it? And I'm the only person in the kitchen. So it's clearly something that I do that I don't even think of doing. It's automatic. Now, there are differences in habitual and non-habitual behavior. Habitual is something we do almost daily in a very stable context or stable place. So you can think about issues other than the behavior you're doing. A non-habitual behavior is something you do less often or in shifting contexts. So you think more about the behavior. So for instance, if I got up in someone else's kitchen one morning, I would walk into it. I wouldn't be thinking of making the coffee necessarily. It'd be a non-habitual behavior because I'd have to think much more about how to do that. Now, the key about habits is the reward must be immediate because that stimulates neurotransmitters, primarily brain dopamine, that enhances laying down of this habit memory. So when I get the coffee, it's not even the caffeine that I get because it takes 20 minutes for caffeine to get into my bloodstream. It's just the nice warmth, the aroma, the taste. That is what is that immediate reward that I get. And so we have to have a reward to lay down habits. Why do we do so much habitual behavior? And habits are very interesting. All mammals have habits. We all set up habits. And if you have a dog or a cat, you know that. You've seen that with them. And there's a couple of reasons. It takes less mental energy required to do a habitual behavior. Remember, our brain gets a very large percentage of our blood flow, 20% or so. And when food wasn't as plentiful, we had to conserve our energy so we could send it to other parts of the body. So we've had to develop habits. There's less stress associated with a habitual than a non-habitual behavior. So when you're driving to work, say, and you come to a detour and you have to go a different way, then you think, oh my gosh, where are the stoplights? Where are the potholes? Where are the problems that may occur? It is stressful to do something different. So a habit, it takes less energy and it's less stress on us. So we really tend to like habits, and we all develop them, we all do them, especially with our eating in our activities. Now, how do you break a bad habit? Well, you don't. Habitual memory stays with you the rest of your life. It's many reasons that people can do things even later in life that they've done earlier that they remember doing, but their executive function isn't as good. So what is a example of all of us trying to break a bad habit? That's an oxymoron. You just can't break it. Well, what about New Year's resolutions? 90% fail. Why? Because we say, well, I'm going to start exercising this year and I'm going to buy some new tennis shoes and get a new treadmill or join a club, or I'm going to start eating differently and I'm throwing out all this food. Well, they fail within a month usually because we try to do too big of a change at once. The habit change has to be a very small change to make a new habit. It's very, very hard to make a new habit by doing a very large event at one time. So bad habits need to be untangled one knot at a time. So if you look at this fishing line, you are not going to just all of a sudden, boom, undo this fishing line and get rid of all the knots. In fact, there's one knot you have to get first before you get the second knot. And then there's that knot you have to get before you get the third knot undone. So it's a very difficult process, just like changing our habits. Have to be very slow, have to be very gradual, have to be done in an organized, stepwise fashion. Well, people may say, my patients will say, Doc, what's the matter with trying to change all at once and failing? So what if I try this new diet and I fail? Big deal. I'll just try another diet. In fact, a third of all Americans at any one time are on a diet at any one point. Well, we have a thing in the brain, a part of the brain called the habitula, which I call the brain's failure center. It remembers failure. And interestingly, it's part of the limbic system, which has been passed down through all of our bodies and our brains as we evolved. All animals really have a limbic system. And the limbic system protects us, and the habitula protects us. So it remembers our failures. So say if you were petting a dog 200,000 years ago and the dog bit you, the next time you tried to pet a dog, the habitula would say, hey, remember, last time you did this and you got bit. Or you were climbing a tree to get some fruit or a nut. You fell out and broke your leg, the habitula will stop you from doing that. And it can actually physically stop you from doing things. It's very similar to the mechanism where you're paralyzed at night when you're asleep, when dreaming, so you won't act out your dreams and then, again, harm yourself with sleepwalking at night, though some people can do that or have that possibility. So it's a protection mechanism that's been passed down through many, many species. So how do you change a habit? Well, generally, very slowly. And there are three ways. One is have an epiphany. So this is very difficult. 25 years ago, I had metastatic cancer, and you would think I had an epiphany that said, change your habits so you have healthy habits so you don't have more cancers. Well, it took me a long, long time to change. Epiphanies are very difficult. But you can change your environment. And sometimes it's a big change, but those are very hard to do, like a new job or a new home or a new location where you live. Usually it's the small environment. So when you get home at night, you walk in the kitchen, you're hungry, try to change it so the environment in the kitchen is better for you. A little healthier choices you can make, maybe some fruits, some vegetables, something that you like to eat, that you really enjoy, instead of going in and getting last night's meatloaf or something like that out of the refrigerator. And then the third is take tiny steps. And this is really one of the key ways, is shown very nicely with B.J. Fogg from Stanford, the reference here, and I'll give you more later, but has shown that these tiny steps you can do over a long time can make a huge benefit in your habit change. So what's an example of this? My wife, who's a nurse, now the kids are gone, when we come home at night, we will sit in the kitchen, talk about our day. It's a social thing. And one day we'd have some cheese. And one day we said, my gosh, we just ate about 500 calories of cheese. A dice of cheese a couple dice can be 90 calories. And so we said, we need to change this, but it's a very pleasurable habit that we have to sit and talk and go over our day. So we decided to buy a nice cheese knife where we could slice the cheese very thin. We decided whenever we do this, we will have a slice of some apple or pear, put a smaller piece of cheese on that apple or pear, eat it. So we really get the cheese flavor. We get the enjoyment. It's a little snack we can have while we're socializing. But we changed our habit very slowly. In fact, we did it by adding a habit to another habit. So we added a habit to something we already did. So the habit we added was cutting the cheese smaller and putting it on a piece of fruit. In the habit, so we changed it slowly, and we didn't really notice it, and now it's just a routine habit that we do. Another habit that many of our patients, certainly I talk about, is alcohol. And remember, we don't change habits as much as we replace them, as I just said. So many patients that have business meetings or get into automatic behavior with drinking, I'll say, the first drink, have it. But the second drink, tell the waiter not to fill it up your glass with more wine, or don't you do it at home. Fill it up with something different like seltzer or club soda or sparkling water or something like that. So at least you're cutting down by half what you're drinking. If you have a third glass, then or fourth, then you're cutting it down by a third or half. So this is a very slow change, very gradual, and it's just fits into the automatic behavior that we have with eating and drinking. Now, change depends on three factors. One is the context of the prompt that we talked about. Where are you? So if you're driving home and you always drive by a certain bar and you stop in the bar and have the drink, then try to find a different way to drive home. Your desire or motivation to change is very important because you want something that's fun to do, that you want to change for. And the third is the ability to do it, or how easy it is to do, or some people call it the friction, meaning how hard is it to do it, or how easy is it to do it. Now, putting these together, the context and the desire and the ability is shown here. If you have very high desire and very high ability to do something, then that's much easier to change that habit in very small ways. If you have very low desire, very low ability, much tougher. So for instance, you say, I want to go out and I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start running a mile every day. Well, you probably don't have much desire to do that, and you may not have much ability either. And it's going to be very, very tough to do. Now, the ones that are mixed, like the mixed desire and mixed ability, mismatch, those are a little easier to do, but still not perfect. So try to find something that really will give you pleasure. Remember, you need that reward, and something that you can achieve. So that means something very small. What's an example of that? Well, we have these guidelines. You need to do 150 minutes of exercise a week or a couple days a week of weights. So I've had patients that I've talked to and said, do this, and they come back and they haven't been able to achieve that. So I actually say, just put on your tennis shoes. That's all you have to do. That's the first step. Put them on for a month, and just wear them and enjoy them. And, when you walk out to get the mail or walk around the neighborhood or something. And then let that grow. It's a small change, but let that grow over time to then maybe taking a few steps. I actually had a patient once that I talked to about getting on the treadmill, and I said, just stand on the treadmill with your tennis shoes, and I'll come back in a few months. We'll talk about it. Came back, and I said, what are you doing? He says, I'm walking every day on the treadmill. I said, well, I thought you were just going to stand there. He said, yeah, but I really felt that while I was there, I may as well just walk. It was easy to stand. But at least it got him on the treadmill. So I talked to you about some references. On the right, The Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg from Stanford, The Power of Habit, Stephen Guise's Mini Habits, and then Wendy Wood from USC, Southern California, has written Good Habits, Bad Habits. All excellent, excellent books, easy to read, very, very eye-opening. I think you'll enjoy them. Some of the take-home points, well, almost half of what we do every day is a habit, and sometimes much more, what we eat. So get expert help on what changes are beneficial. I didn't talk to you about that, but, because there's no one diet, there's no one exercise, there's no one way to quit smoking, etc. Large change has a high failure rate. And remember, failure rate is ingrained in us, and we try not to do the same thing over and over again. When we fail, the habitual will keep you from doing that. So you need to make very small changes that can be accomplished and let them grow. And to start a habit, link an action to a certain context and give an immediate reward. Build on the existing habit. So the reward could just be your pride in doing it and saying to yourself, wow, I did this. I put on my tennis shoes. This was great. So you have that dopamine surge that helps lay down the habit memory. And then to change bad habits, make them harder to do by increasing the friction. So they're much harder to do. Slowly change, just like unraveling that fishing line one knot at a time. So I really appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much. Good day.